Are you still in Boston? Were you in?
I'm in D.
Are you still in Boston? Were you in?
I'm in DC now. I was just in Boston for 2 years for school, but yeah, no, it's too terrifying to drive into Boston. I didn't make it very often. But yeah, no, it's too terrifying to drive into Boston. I didn't make it.
Didn't have any driving, fortunately. Lived very close to the university.
That's nice in that area.
Okay, so I will warn everybody right now that we are streaming, hopefully to Facebook, and hopefully they can hear us. A little bit of a different setup this time around. The Facebook people are going to be seeing my camera view because the streaming computer decided that it's just not going to run VirBela today, apparently. Even though it was running VirBela literally a few seconds ago, it just decided, nah, I'm going to quit right now. Anyway, I do want to make sure you guys can all hear me, though. Can everyone in VirBela hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And can everyone, you know, I got someone who's watching on Facebook. I can see a couple people on Facebook. Can you guys hear me? That'd be nice. We had a couple people who joined in and then they dropped out, and then I'm not sure where they are. Normally, so this is fun. I'm running the whole thing from one computer for one time. Normally, I run this from one computer and a streaming computer, but unfortunately, this time around, it's going to be a little bit different. So we'll just see how that goes.
Do you want me to change it back to flat voice?
Yes, please change it to flat voice. Sorry, because I can't hear everybody right now. And I don't know if anyone
can.
Francis, you can hear me? Excellent. All right, cool. Facebook can hear me. That's great. And I have no idea if the recording can hear me, but we'll find that out soon. But it is nice to know that at least Facebook can hear me as long as they can hear me. We are good to go, and they should be able to hear, frankly, everything else that you guys are saying as well, which is a good thing. Other than that, let's see. I see some chat going on. Help will show all commands. Nick Rokop, thanks for saying hello, Nick. Sorry I couldn't respond to you very quickly. Yeah, I'm really trying to figure out what just happened with this computer that was all set up to stream, and then all of a sudden it just decided it was going to stop streaming for me, and now I'm going to shut it down and get it out of my face and deal with it later. But in the meantime, technical difficulties. Hey, always fun to have technical difficulties, and always good to have a backup. So we do have a backup. So again, for those of you who are watching on the live stream, this will be a little bit of a new view for you guys. You're actually going to see what I see when I'm controlling, as opposed to seeing what my little camera guy in the room usually sees from the streaming computer. Unfortunately, the little camera operator that I normally have is just not working. And so you're going to get to see my normal. So you'll get to see how I run this event from my VirBela person. With that, though, we got a few more minutes until everybody starts, so I'm not going to, we can all just sort of stand here and network and talk and stuff like that. Looks like we got a decent number of people in the room to start, and I'm seeing at least one person file in on Facebook. Tom, I don't know if you have the capability of checking Facebook, like the actual just sort of Facebook account. I think somebody sent a message looking for a link, but I don't know. I couldn't respond because I was dealing with a technical issue.
Get out.
But we got about a minute until we actually officially get started, so thank you everybody for dealing with me and my lovely bad attitude while I was dealing with a technical issue that is a rather new one. This is the joy of having multiple computers in front of me. But in the meantime, we're ready to get started almost. So who do we got in the room? Let's see. Who do we see that I normally do? It is me. Do not worry about it. It's okay, Francis. I see that you're here. Thank you very much. For those of you who haven't been here before, because it looks like we do have some names in the room that I'm not familiar with, we are streaming live to Facebook Live. Normally, like I said, I do this from a different computer, but we'll be doing it from this one today. But in that, and I apologize for those of you on Facebook Live who normally don't have to hear my background noise when I mute my microphone, but so be it. We'll get started because it is 6:15, so I'm going to make sure, let's see, first thing I want to do is I want to add some seating So we got some tables, so everybody who's not a presenter at this point can go ahead and grab a seat. And if my presenters actually don't mind, they can go ahead and grab seats anywhere up on the stage area. Whatever seats are open. And we will get started. And again, thank you everybody for dealing with my technical problems. They are always lovely to deal with. Apologies again if you're going to be, for those of you on the Facebook Live, you might be hearing a little bit more clicking than you normally do. You might be hearing my birds chirp a lot because I'm hearing them right now. But normally I get to mute myself and you guys don't have to deal with all of this. But this time around looks like you're kind of going to have to. So let me go in really quickly. And
you can also click the...
that has, you know, just sort of the rules of the road for the Facebook post. And there we go. Then we'll get started. And those go right here, and then I pin them. And pin. Awesome. Okay, so for those of you who've never been here before, and I still see some people filtering, but that's great. Welcome. This is VRAR Chicago. This is we're approaching 5 years on how many times we've actually been doing this event. One of the things that we will be doing, this is a live interactive event. We expect you all to be present, you know, kind of participating with us. The whole point of this event is actually you, the audience, and that means you in Facebook world as well. And so with that, we're going to start with the people in the room. I'm going to actually ask everybody, in the bottom center of your screen in VirBela, there's a little raise hand button. If you have never been to this event before, please click that button and raise your hand. Okay. And you can click it again and put your hand down. And if you have been to this event before, please click that button and raise your hand right now. All right, that does two things for me. You can go ahead and put your hands down. What that does is that shows me that you guys know how to raise hands, which is great, because when we get to the Q&A portion, that feature is going to be very, very important. And also, it shows me that you're here and you're paying attention, which is great. So for back to this event and just VRAR Chicago and who we are and what we do. So VRAR Chicago, this is approaching, we're not quite at 5 years, but we're getting very close to 5 years of this event being live. And today we're going to be talking about how immersive technology is affecting education. Now, we've done education as a topic almost every year, I will say, because frankly, it is one of the big spaces where immersive technology is very important. And oddly enough, you know, over the last 2 years or so, as we've been dealing with the pandemic, immersive technology in the education space, you know, frankly, schools couldn't go to school physically, so they were doing things like Zoom meetings, and some places were actually using immersive technology tools and VR environments and stuff like that to teach. Obviously, we're using an environment right now in VirBela that we could be doing, you know, remote education in. But before we get into the actual topic, I do want to thank our sponsors who make this event possible. And I will start with Bundle AR, and I'm not sure, is Anthony in the room, I'm guessing?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Anthony, if you want to come and join me, you can come and join me, and I will pull up the Bundle AR slides, and I will let you take it away.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Matt. Hey everyone, hope you're doing good tonight. My name is Anthony Colon and I am the marketing coordinator at Bundle AR. Just to give you all a brief background of who we are and what we do, Bundle AR is an augmented reality company based out of Chicago. And we've created a web-based AR platform that enables our users to design, publish, and access augmented reality experiences without having to write a single line of code. And when I say we, I'm obviously referring to our amazing dev team that built the platform. So people like me who have no coding experience can now design and publish their own AR, which is amazing. And we do have a quick video here, just so you can all get a little more background on who we are and what we do, if you'd like to play that for me, Matt.
Sure, just a moment.
Until now, creating augmented reality was hard. IT departments simply do not have the expertise, so they rely on expensive developers and one-off solutions. Introducing Bundle AR's augmented reality platform. Bundle AR's revolutionary, self-serve augmented reality content management system allows anyone, anywhere, to easily create, edit, and deploy augmented reality to Apple and Google devices instantly and on a global scale. Now is the time to add on-demand, accurate, and trusted digital information to your communications through a tool nearly everybody already has, their smartphone. Perfect for just-in-time immersive training, learning, and development programs. Easily place multimedia content like videos or interactive 3D models on real-world items like signage, brochures, or packaging to enhance your audience's understanding of your product, procedures, or story. No special equipment or coding skills necessary. It's augmented reality made easy. Visit bundlear.com now to get started.
So as you guys can see from the video, the applications for AR are only truly limited by your imagination. So if any of you guys would like to know more, I'll be sticking around until the end of the event. And thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony. All right, and that is Bundle AR. Our next sponsor is 1871. 1871 is Chicago's technology incubator. I don't think I have anybody from 1871 here today. Chris, did you want to say anything about 1871 VX for a minute or two?
Sure.
Sorry to throw you on the spot there with no warning.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. I am the executive director of VRAR Chicago, and one of the projects that we did work on with 1871 was creating basically it's a private campus using the VirBela platform, but their own sort of immersive private campus that they are going to use towards their goals of future expansion and globally, and sort of an omni-channel experience for all their members, which in the news lately also seems to be a very popular topic. I won't name any names here, but I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. And so that's what we did. We helped them, we facilitated, we consulted on it with them, and then we sort of facilitated the build. And it is launched. They're working through sort of what it's going to look like, and I'm sure it's going to be iterating for several, hopefully for several years to come.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yes, so 1871 is Chicago, again, just really briefly, 1871 is Chicago's technology incubator. They are actually UBI's global #1 actually business incubator in the world. And with that, they have a number of companies that are hosted out of 1871, including Bundle AR. Bundle AR happens to be an 1871 member. But they are, frankly, if you're a startup or if you're in a technology company that is starting to scale, they're a great resource. And whereas they have obviously been a great resource to the Chicago community, they're now using their own private campus to be able to expand their offerings beyond the Chicago community. So check them out at 1871.com and research them. And if you have any questions about them, feel free to ask me as well, because personally, my companies have been 1871 members for the last 7 years now. Wow, weird to think about that. Our other sponsor, and I don't think I see anybody from VirBela in the room tonight, although we normally have one of them come by, is VirBela, which is the space that we're all sitting in. They have been sponsoring this event now for over a year, approaching a year and a half, effectively since, shortly after the start of the pandemic. They give us this room. VRAR Chicago, actually our only actual office for the entirety of the pandemic has pretty much been in this VirBela campus. We have a private team suite here. And in addition to that, we've actually, we've been working with VirBela for a number of years in terms of the services that we offer. VirBela is great in terms of doing events like this, in terms of having a private office. I would definitely say if you have any questions about VirBela, feel free to check it out. But we do like working with them, and they've been, again, providing us with the ability to host this event for over a year now. Although we are looking forward to getting back to live and hybrid events, and perhaps I'll start to talk a little bit more about that next month. We have some pretty cool stuff coming up. We also want to thank some other partners who help us in terms of booking presenters and promoting the event and just getting the word out and talking to people, those being XR Women, the IGDA, 2112, and the NVRML. But with that, let's actually get to the event here and what we're talking about, which is immersive technology in education. And frankly, you guys are not here to hear me talk about it. You are here to hear our presenters talk about it and then to get your questions answered. And with that, I will turn it over to our first presenter, who is Elise. And I will let you introduce yourself versus me attempting to do it and getting a bunch of stuff wrong. So Elise will come and join me here. Actually, we don't have to worry about the picture-in-picture at this point because it's not here.
Great. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me on this very exciting virtual stage and for hosting this conversation. I'm really excited to hear from everyone else as well. So my name is Elise Dick. I'm a policy analyst at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. We are a think tank based in Washington, D.C. that focuses on science, technology, and innovation policy. So my role at ITIF is within our Internet and Data Research Department, and I lead our AR/VR workstream. So I am researching anything and everything that is at the intersection of public policy and immersive technologies. So looking at things like government investment in critical areas such as education. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of a report that I recently put out this summer that is called The Promise of Immersive Learning. A lot of it might be actually not that new of information to everyone here if you are familiar with immersive tech and education, but it's supposed to be sort of a landscape that you can use to help explain the importance of this technology, and also has some recommendations for policymakers and government to actually invest and make sure that we are accelerating innovation in this sector. Do I have slides? Sorry.
You just tell me when you want to advance and I'll advance them.
Yeah, go ahead. So go to the next slide and do one more, sorry. Yeah, so just a quick overview of ITIF. Like I said, we are a think tank focusing on technical innovation and public policy, IT and data, but also things like trade, life sciences, competitiveness. And we are the world's top think tank for science and technology policy, according to the University of Pennsylvania's Global Go-To Think Tank Index. So if you are interested in other aspects of innovation policy, I definitely recommend you look at some of the great work my colleagues are doing. Next slide. So this is the report that I worked on about education and immersive technologies. I'm not going to go through all these key takeaways. These are available on the website, and we'll cover a lot of it in this presentation. But basically, the concept narrows down to AR/VR is a promising addition to the edtech space. There are incredible applications out there right now and great promise for the future. And I hope that we can find a way that we can all share the importance of this technology in education going forward. Next slide. So enthusiasm for AR/VR in education is growing. It has been for several years, and it is expected to continue, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic and the recognition that we need ways to come together when we can't physically be in the same room. In 2016, 93% of US teachers said their students would be excited to use VR, and 83% believed that they could provide good learning outcomes using this technology. In 2018, 62% of parents overall and 84% of parents who'd actually used VR thought that this technology could provide their children with educational experiences. Also in 2018, just under 50% of higher education institutions had either partially or fully engaged in VR deployment. And in the XR industry survey by Perkins Coie and the XR Association in 2020, the industry leaders surveyed believe that education would be the second most likely sector to be disrupted by immersive technologies in the near future. And I think we're seeing that in real time right now. Next slide. So the first area that we can look at is the value of AR/VR in K-12 education. Obviously, there are a lot of questions we still have to answer about using this technology effectively with younger learners, but there are definitely promising use cases already in place and a lot of potential there. The whole purpose of AR/VR in K-12 is really to give teachers tools to enhance classroom learning and meet students where they are to make sure that every individual student learns in a way that makes sense to them. So current uses might include immersive learning curricula and resource collections, things like the Smithsonian Institution's collection of 3D models, many of which are actually available as augmented reality, or resource collections like the New York Times collection of 360 video that can be used as a curriculum tool. Also, subject-specialized learning tools that really dive into specific subject areas. One example in the report is actually killer snails, so I'll wait until they come up to talk about that. But that's a really exciting area as well, where I hope we can see more use cases come up. And then, of course, special education learning and resource platforms. The great thing about VR is we can really adjust education to meet every student where they are, and that includes students with learning disabilities who might need extra help navigating classroom experiences and gaining the knowledge that they need to be successful. Next slide. In higher education, obviously, it's a little bit more about the actual learning that individuals can do. There's the great potential to overcome not just physical space, but the laws of physics, and gives students the opportunity to learn and explore independently with guidance from instructors, again, at their own pace. Lots of really great examples in higher education. The general categories that I would use to describe them are experience-driven STEM education tools. So this is especially things like being able to get up close and personal with microscopic objects, or things that you would not be able to do in a physical lab. Also, medical training solutions like holoanatomy that allow medical students to gain important knowledge and practice without having to actually interact with patients from the outset. But beyond STEM and medical, which I think are sort of the high profile uses right now, there's also great opportunities for arts, humanities, and other disciplines to really engage with the material and engage in their learning in new and exciting ways through these technologies. There's also soft skills and career development tools, as well as technical education and specialized training platforms that can help students gain real-world experience in low-risk environments, whether that's things like high-stress situations like patient care, or highly technical situations like using dangerous tools and machinery. Next slide. And then, of course, there are other uses for AR, VR besides just using it to teach students. Obviously, children and higher education students are not the only audiences here, even though they should be the primary stakeholder as we're moving forward. But obviously, we have opportunities to train teachers as well. There's some great tools out there, and I would love to see more platforms being developed to really help teachers reach students and become the best teachers they can be, and experiment with their own classroom learning styles, and again, a low-risk environment. And hopefully, as these technologies become more widely used in schools, we can also see them provide valuable tools to administrators and faculty through collaboration tools and other opportunities to engage in virtual environments that they might not be taking advantage of at the moment. Next slide. So I am the resident policy geek, so I had to come to you with policy recommendations. And I do think that there's a valuable role for government and policy to play here, and people like you all who are engaging in the space should play an active role in educating policymakers and the people who have the opportunity to invest in this technology to reach some of these goals. So a few things that I've said that perhaps Congress should direct the Department of Education to invest in are research, especially in areas like health and safety concerns for young users. We want to make sure we know how to deploy these safely and effectively for young learners so that they can take advantage of this technology. Also providing resources and opportunities to educators, allowing them to develop the skills and knowledge they need to actually deploy these technologies and understand also how to adapt the technology to their specific needs. As well as integrating AR, VR into digital literacy initiatives. So making sure that students of today, tomorrow, and the future know not just how to use a laptop and internet, but also know how to use immersive technology devices and platforms. Also, government investment in content is critical. There are great opportunities for agencies that are already involved in educational tools to look to immersive technologies to build out their libraries. And finally, expanding initiatives to expand access to devices and applications through things like community labs, college laboratories, public libraries, different ways that we can make sure communities that might not otherwise have access to this technology and the ability to take advantage of the incredible opportunities that it offers, have an opportunity to actually use that. So next slide. That's my quick overview. Again, I think a lot of this is probably not new information for everyone, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But please feel free to reach out and contact me. I am a policy researcher. I think about this literally every day, 9 to 5, and I love to hear from people who are actually working in this field. So my contact information is here. It's also, if you go to itif.org, you can find me there as well. And I look forward to hearing everyone's questions and thoughts.
And thank you very much, Elise. All right, and again, we will have the open, so for those, sorry, I just saw kind of a large bump of people jumping on Facebook, so I'm going to just speak to the Facebook Live audience for a few seconds there. We will have the ability at the end to get to questions and answers, so those of you who are watching on Facebook, you also can participate in the Q&A by typing questions into the chat, and those are the people in the room, you'll be able to do raising your hands and ask questions live in the room. Just so everyone's aware, this is going to be fully interactive. But up next, we have Alex from Unity. Alex, come and join me here. He may already be doing it. I don't know. There he is. And I will let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, a real pleasure to be here this evening, morning, wherever you are. I guess a lot of you are in Chicago. It's just a pleasure to talk to people that are interested in this stuff and can nerd out about the kind of where we are right now and the exciting future that we're working towards. Yeah, I work at Unity. My role in particular is supporting schools and educators, especially, to help bring Unity technology into their classroom or school to create programs that involve Unity and real-time 3D in general. And excitingly, I guess for me, who has a real passion for immersive learning as a classroom teacher for many years, I'm now getting to work with creators as well, EdTech creators, and helping to champion them. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Unity, who we are, for those of you who don't know, and talk a little bit about, in particular, how we're kind of trying to support creators, the next generation of immersive creators. So yeah, next slide. Next slide. I always like to kind of set context. I really like this slide a lot. Because I think it helps give context as to, where we are now in terms of education and why this is, I think one of the most exciting times to be alive if you are interested in immersive technology and also education. Someone a thought leader in the space who I really admire, Kathy Hackle, recently wrote a book called The Augmented Workforce. I can drop a link in later to the chat, but she suggests there that, in the decade to come, the acceleration of this technology is going to feel like a Cambrian explosion, an event that happened over 5 million years ago, where most living things burst into being. And that kind of is really what it feels like right now. Obviously, it's been a crazy couple of weeks with announcements of folks talking about how they plan to build the metaverse. And, I think this is just a sign of things to come. So yeah, this image here shows that how, our economy has changed and had several revolutions over time, starting with the advent of the steam engine in the 18th century, allowing production to be mechanized for the first time and driving social change. People became increasingly urbanized. The second industrial revolution, electricity and other scientific advancements started leading to mass production. Obviously, these things had a big effect on education, people moving closer to cities. The third industrial revolution, beginning in the 1950s, saw the emergence of computers and digital technology. This led to increasing automation of manufacturing and the disruption of industries like banking, energy, and communications. So it's believed that we're living in the fourth industrial revolution now, which is a time where all of these technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, AR, VR, importantly for us here, cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, all of these technologies are converging to create this very, I guess, exciting, also very interesting time that we're living in. We're more interconnected than ever, thanks to the internet. Knowledge is free, applied real world learning is valued, and creativity is essential. We're preparing the next generation for jobs that don't yet exist, which is kind of scary to think about. But as we know, that work is changing, that our students need to be future ready in order to find fruitful careers. It's kind of our job to help them prepare for that and be flexible in this kind of chaotic, quickly changing world. And I guess the convergence of this technology, the big buzzword at the moment is the metaverse, and the fact that the digital world is becoming more closely, closer to us than the real world. And, in the next decade, we're going to be spending more time in the digital world, and it's going to merge. Next slide. So a little bit about Unity. Unity is the world's leading platform for creating and operating interactive, real-time 3D content. Next slide. So 71% of the top 1,000 mobile games are powered by Unity. 50% of all new mobile games are powered by Unity. Interestingly, to these people here, to the folks here, I'm sure 60% of all AR and VR content is powered by Unity. There's 2.7 billion monthly active users consuming our content, 60 billion installs of things made with Unity in the last 12 months. And there's about 8 million developers worldwide using Unity. Next slide. Our roots are in gaming. We started as a gaming engine, but it isn't just for gaming anymore. The advantages of our engine are relevant across industries. So architects, for example, love that it allows them to render their designs in real time, saves a lot of time and money for them, especially showing things to clients. Animation and film use Unity real-time rendering to see their stories come to life faster with less cost. The Lion King was recently made with Unity. The most recent Lion King made using Unity technology. Automotive design, for example, and engineering see the same benefits to using Unity. They can design in VR. They can actually test out their designs in real time. And excitingly, obviously, for people like myself and people like you all, I'm sure, is that education and training is using Unity to create realistic simulations for all kinds of learning and practice. And I guess think what you want about Facebook's recent rebrand, but excitingly, they're committing $150 million into the space in the coming years to help both, upskill developers developing in VR and AR, but also to edtech creators who are using these technologies to teach. And I think it should be stressed that for students learning Unity, which is part of my role at Unity, the opportunities with real-time development skills are just really opens up a world of opportunities to them across all these different industries. Next slide. Some really interesting stats, I think, that's showing VR, the growth of VR. That PwC had a recent report which showed that VR and AR was going to deliver a $1.5 trillion boost to the global economy by 2030, from creating new consumer experiences to speeding up product development, improving workplace safety. There's a lot of compelling uses for this technology that promise to drive growth from the current GDP contribution of only $46.4 billion. Another really interesting study that PwC released was that VR content revenues reportedly increased by 30% year over year. That beat out film, traditional video games, and music. In its annual Global Entertainment and Media Outlook report, PwC estimated VR content revenue to hit 1.8 billion last year, a 31.7% increase over the previous year. And that's a really fast growth. I think we're going to see a lot of growth in both AR and VR in the next couple of years. Next slide. So yeah, I think a lot about empowering the next generation of creators in real-time 3D, obviously using Unity as a tool. But some really interesting stats that show the opportunities for people who are building these skills, and it's not just young learners, it's people who are reskilling, having a career change, picking up tools like Unity. Is that one report, for example, showed that hiring demand for AR and VR grew by 1,400%. That was in 2019. That was a study conducted by Hired. And also a recent Burning Glass study showed that roles that utilize Unity skills are growing 62% faster than the job market overall. That same study showed that salaries for AR and VR developers and game developers are far higher in the US and UK than the US and UK national average salaries in particular. In San Francisco, for example, game and XR developers make on average about 150K a year. In London, game and XR developers are making around £82,000 a year. That's from the same Burning Glass study. And I can drop that in the comments later as well, if anyone's interested. So yeah, those are just a few, I guess, examples of why this is a very exciting, high growth time. Obviously, I'm an educator myself, so understand what it would look like in the classroom or what these things can do. Another thing that I'm really, I talked about before is supporting EdTech creators and developers. That's something that we do. And we recently, I'll drop in the chat here as well, but we've recently announced that we're a grant of $500,000 for our Unity for Humanity grant. And so I know there's a few developers here in the audience who might be interested in that. Essentially, that's a grant inspired by Common, who we partnered with, who is supporting a school in the Chicago area. This is the Imagine grant, and so it's for any project that best imagines a better world. And I know that's a wide open category, so I hope maybe some of you will be interested in that. I will drop some of these links in the chat. And yeah, really excited to talk with you all. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat as well, and just want to connect with anyone who's keen to nerd out about this stuff. Thanks very much for having me.
And thank you, Alex. So Alex, I gotta throw one funny little coincidence in here, which I think is hilarious, is the fact that I saw right before the event started that you're speaking with Carlos tomorrow, Ochoa.
Yeah, so if any of you are keen to dive deeper into the world of education, Carlos chairs the AR and VR committee and was very kind to invite me as a co-chair recently. So tomorrow we're talking to some really cool folks in the education edtech space. I can drop the link to Carlos's post there for any of you who can make that. I believe that will be, it's at 10, I think it'll be 10 a.m. Carlos might correct me if I'm wrong. 10 a.m. Central, I know.
Just so you're aware, Carlos is actually watching live on the Facebook stream right now, and he was commenting.
Oh, excellent.
So that's why I was like, oh, hey, Carlos is here. I'm gonna shout out his event tomorrow. Why not?
It's 11 a.m. Central.
11 a.m. Central.
12 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. I'll drop a link. Links for everyone. Excellent. Coming soon.
Thank you. I was just laughing that I saw Carlos on the live stream. So I'm like, all right, whatever. You know what? I'm gonna bring up that event. Because I saw that on LinkedIn actually just about an hour before this started. But with that, let me get to our third and final panelist for the evening, which is Jessica. Also last name Ochoa, but I'm going to take a guess and say not related. Although, I don't actually know that for sure.
As far as I'm aware, we are not.
No, I didn't think so. It's a relatively common name I'm from, or I've been told. Actually, that's what Carlos told me. feel free to come and join me here, and I will step out of the way and let you go.
Hi, everyone. I am Jessica Ochoa Hendrix. I am the CEO and co-founder of Killer Snails. Can we go to the next slide, please? Killer Snails creates immersive educational games and experiences for the K through 12 educational market. Slide, please. And we started this company in 2016 when we first, my two co-founders, one of whom is a practicing marine biochemist and one of whom is an educational psychologist, we realized that students were losing interest in science in middle school, and that teachers were also looking for more ways to teach science that were aligned to the, at that point, brand new next generation science standards. Slide, please. And so that led to our company, which creates games that meet kids where they are and encourages kids to take risks through a gaming experience, but also supports them and supports teachers in monitoring their progress. So all of our games put students into the role of scientists. We really believe in you need to be able to see it to be it. So we also include these digital science journals, which are websites that each student uses a laptop to go to. And that's where students are, they see diverse scientists with a variety of interesting careers. They develop hypotheses, they construct models, and then they go into the virtual world where they actually get to be the scientist, and they go do the same kind of task that they saw the scientists do earlier. And then the third part is an educator dashboard, which updates in live time with the interactions the students are having in either virtual reality or augmented reality, as well as the responses that they're putting into their digital science journals. And it's also a place where they can leave comments, feedback, and just overall kind of track the progress of the class. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about 3 separate products, each of which is built using that same model of 3 linked components. So the first one is called BioDive, and BioDive was developed with funding from the National Science Foundation, and it includes those same 3 pieces you can see here. And in this experience, students are going underwater, and they are learning about biotic and abiotic factors that are impacted by humans and activities. And next slide, please. And we conducted this 27-state pilot that enabled us to gather a lot of feedback from both teachers who really liked the way that the program worked and said things like, it was a great way of showing ocean dynamics without the luxury of actually being there. And they really liked how engaged the students were. And then just as importantly to us, next slide, please. Students really loved it. They talked about how it felt like they were there. And my favorite one is that they said they could see that I could see myself as a scientist because it seemed really fun. And that was the kind of feedback that we wanted to hear and hoped that would continue as we started to develop other experiences. And in fact, we started to actually track for that and measure if the experience helped students see themselves as a scientist. Next slide, please. And we asked them here, if they would want to play it again. And we also measured their content knowledge in this one, in these slides. And as you can see, they gained in all of these different areas. Slide, please. And then we get to GeoForge. So GeoForge was developed with a grant from the Institute of Educational Sciences. And this one was a new experience for us in that we created multiplayer VR. Oh, one thing I should also note is that the VR that we created, because we wanted to be in schools and we really wanted to serve students who are traditionally underrepresented in STEM, we knew that we would not be able to design for any of the more expensive headsets. And we do also use Unity. So shout out to Unity for being wonderful to work with and an excellent tool for developing. And so we developed for Google Cardboard or other inexpensive headsets that require a mobile phone. And then once the pandemic hit, we also added web VR as a feature. But for this particular experience with GeoForge, we started working on this pre-pandemic. So we were actually able to bring it into classrooms and students were able to see each other. So I don't know if you can tell in this picture, but this is the viewpoint of one student who's looking at another student in a space rover. And so they were able to follow each other and communicate and complete tasks collaboratively. Next slide, please. And so again, 100% of the teachers who we tested it with said they would like to use it again. And they had some excellent comments that were fascinating about how they saw that students who were traditionally not particularly engaged in science, their behavior was completely different. And now these students were like the leaders in their groups because they were, more comfortable with this format. They kind of understood what to do. And it was a whole different side of those children. And then we tested it with a variety of grades from 5th through 8th, and all of them said that it did help them to see themselves as a scientist. Next slide, please. And this is the project that we're currently working on called Waterways. And this is our first one that this is funded by the National Institutes of Health. And we're developing this in partnership with the Wildlife Conservation Society, Hudson River Park, and Mount Sinai's Transdisciplinary Center for Early Environmental Exposure. And this was for younger students in grades 3 through 5. And it's really focused on the impacts of how water moves to you, how it moves away from you, and our impact on water and water's impact on us. And this one is the first one that we've developed entirely during the pandemic, which has led to some, a whole new way of piloting remotely. But we were able to successfully continue to pilot it. Can you move forward, please? And so you can see some of my team here in our little Zoom box. And so we ended up realizing that the best way to pilot with these students was first we would do individual user tests where we would have students use the AR, which again, shout out to Unity, is developed in Unity, and the Digital Science Journal while they were sitting on a Zoom call, and we would just keep asking them, we would ask them to read aloud, and we would ask them to tell us what they were thinking. And we were able to get a lot more deep feedback that way, but we weren't able to kind of stress test it in the way that we were able to when we were actually in a classroom. So then we did partner with a few schools who decided to treat it as sort of a virtual field trip. And we basically took up the whole class period and we would tell them, we would kind of frame for them what they were going to be doing. And then it changed each time and with each school because some of the schools were fully remote. Some of the schools had students that were half remote and students that half of them were in the classroom. Some of them had their own devices and they were on, iPads versus tablets or Chromebooks. And trying to hear a classroom when you're on a Zoom call, as you can imagine, is really challenging. So we were able to kind of see how they did by watching in the dashboard and by looking at their responses in the journals, but we weren't really able to get the kind of feel of, what were they actually saying out loud, because you couldn't really understand anyone in the classroom when that was happening. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick summary of the games and experiences that we currently have on the market. And the next slide, please. The things that we are kind of differentiators when we're describing how Killer Snails curriculum supplements are different from others is really the tech, the way that our Digital Science Journal and virtual reality link with the teacher's dashboard. Our team, which is composed primarily of scientists and educators, and the content delivery, because our program it's both multimodal, but it's also able to be conducted both in person and remotely. It's been able to really help a lot of educators during the last 2 years. Slide, please. So we have been largely backed by the Small Business Innovation Research Grants. And I'm not sure if any of the folks in this room, how familiar you are with those, but they're fantastic sources of funding for for-profit companies who are interested in doing innovative research. And if anyone, after I'm done here, wants to talk about that more, I'm happy to speak more about that process. And next slide, please. And yeah, we've been very fortunate to get some press coverage in a range of places. And I always also like to end these by saying, if you know of any schools that would like to pilot with us, then we are right now, we're mostly focused on elementary schools that have students in grades 3 through 5, but we would love to partner with any of them to have them test out waterways. The next slide, please. And that is our team. And I think that's pretty much it. My contact information I'll put into the chat as well, and I'm looking forward to any questions that anyone has.
And thank you very much, Jessica. And I can see you're typing a chat right now, but at this point we're going to actually go into the Q&A, so you can just stay here. You don't actually have to go anywhere. And actually, Elise and Alex, if you would join me up here. This is where we get to the fun and interactive portion of the evening, which is the live Q&A. And so the way this works, because again, the whole point, and I know I didn't really go over the intro because I was dealing with technical difficulties and I got distracted. But the whole point of this event is to answer the questions of our audience. So our audience, I know a lot of you were saying, oh, well, the people here might know more than some other folks. Our audience is generally a very wide range of people. Some people are will be coming from the education space. Some will be coming from VRAR. Some will have a lot of experience with the technology. Some will have very little to none. And on top of that, we do actually present the event because we know that we're streaming this live to Facebook, and that recording will be around forever, so people will be, coming in from, who knows when, and watching it, so they may also have questions. So we do like to speak to all levels here. So with that, though, we will see who is going to be the brave one in the room that's actually going to ask the first question. And for those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, if you would like to participate live, we do actually, we would appreciate, just type any question you might have in the chat. I will read it into the room live here, and the people who are in the room can answer. So we do get to, work live with our Facebook audience who couldn't actually be in the room at VirBela as well. But right now, I'm curious who is going to raise their hand first in the room. And I just realized, give me a second here, that I have hidden the list of people, so I can't see people raising their hands. There we go. I'm going to go with Nick.
Hey, Matt. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Hey, thank you very much, panelists. That was great. I am a professor of entrepreneurship at the Illinois Institute of Technology. And so one of the things I'm curious about is what might be some of the sort of early stage entrepreneurial opportunities that our students could explore using VRAR. Just a couple of thoughts. Thanks.
I'm actually going to have all three of you answer that one, if you don't mind. We'll start. I'm just going to go kind of side by side and say, Alex, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I think in the education space, obviously there's a lot of opportunity. 150 million from Facebook. They just opened the purse strings, looking to fund creators. I think that's a really exciting opportunity. I think also for, when I think about VR and AR, I think what are the affordances of them that you can't do in other places? I think particularly about VR. The professor at Stanford, one of the, I guess, godfathers of VR research, Jeremy Bailenson, I think has a acronym, RIDE. So like rare things that are rare that you wouldn't be able to do, like climb Mount Everest. Things that are sort of impossible, I guess that's Mount Everest as well. What can't you do in real life that you could do in VR? Things that are dangerous, obviously, like workplace training, things like that. You can transfer skills from something that you wouldn't be able to do, like operating on cadavers, for example, is not a cheap thing, and you need to be in a medical school to do it, and you only do it when you get to a certain year. But now that's available to any student, and E is expensive, so things that that you wouldn't normally get to do because they cost too much. So I think that's like a really good way to frame what the opportunities are with VR, especially I know AR as well. Something that I like to think about. There's obviously a lot of things that don't work. Like I think having frameworks like that before setting out on a path is useful, because some things just don't work in AR and VR and aren't worth the time.
That's a wonderful framework. I love it. I just copied that down, and thank you for sharing that.
I'll also drop his book, Experience on Demand, into the chat here. I can't recommend it highly enough for anyone interested in VR. It's one of the best books on VR.
Yeah, I'll second reading what Jeremy has had to say on this, because he really is the forefront. We actually just had an event 2 weeks ago now, and we had an interview with him talking about what his lab is doing in terms of education and training. There's some really exciting stuff there. I think in addition to that framework, one of the things to really think about is content. Right now, there's still, people like Jessica are doing great work building out that content and making it available to educators, but there's so much opportunity to build out what's available, especially for different learning levels, for different subjects. And also finding ways to make sure teachers have the tools to build their own experiences or shape existing tools to meet their unique needs. So I think looking at the content angle, using that framework that Alex just laid out, is also a really great opportunity when you're entering this space.
Yeah, I guess specific content is going to be really important there for some critical applications. So thank you for that.
Jessica?
Yeah, I would agree with what both of the other folks said. And I would also maybe add that for folks who are just starting off, who are interested in entrepreneurial opportunities, maybe finding a specific area that they want to address, because as Elise was saying, there either you could be a content creator who's creating something for students to use, or you could be trying to create something for students to create with, or something that is easily adapted by teachers to whatever changes they want to be able to make. So for somebody who's just starting off, maybe first determining what particular aspect you want to address, and then finding partners to quickly test ideas with. One of the biggest benefits for us has always been to partner with teachers and schools to be able to quickly bring ideas to them and realize what's going to work and what isn't going to work. So identifying what you want to work on and then who you can brainstorm these ideas with would be, a really powerful first step.
That's great. And I love the name Killer Snails, Jessica.
Thank you. I have to also add that those are real. And they are, yes, I was going to say, I bet you know about them because there are a lot off Australia. They are so deadly that they can kill a 200-pound person in under 5 minutes. Scientists, like my co-founder Mandy, are using the venom to create therapeutic drugs. And so we took that as our name, both because it stands out and also because it's just one way that science is amazing and innovative and cool.
Okay, now I got to look this up. I did not actually look up the killer snails, but now that's like one of those things that I'm going to have to actually read about. And Nick, I know we know each other, for a lot of years and through a lot of different methods. The one thing I'll say too, and this is one of those things that, we've brought this up on several different occasions at VRAR Chicago and different events, is it's just like, when people think about, okay, I want to talk about entrepreneurship with this technology, you don't have to be a developer to be an entrepreneur in augmented reality or virtual reality. You don't have to be a technologist at all. There's content creation for education. There's people who are going to be solving business. One of the biggest solutions that we deal with Bundle AR right now is customer support for Microsoft. And it's, again, it's at the end of the day, that is customer support. And so, actually Anthony, who was just up here speaking from Bundle AR, was talking. He's a marketing professional. So from an entrepreneurship standpoint, this technology is new. It's growing. It is growing so fast right now that it's very hard for anybody to kind of keep up with it. And as new companies come up within the space and other companies begin to implement the technology, and all of these different things are happening as, again, this technology sort of eats the world, it's one of those things where almost whatever your professional skill set, whatever your interest is, there's an opportunity here. And you just kind of have to think through it a little bit and you'll find it. That's one of those things that I'll say. Obviously, I was advising the team from IIT earlier this year on something that frankly I would not have thought of, a month before I met them, in terms of, hey, this is one of those things. It's like, yeah, they might be doing this. I don't want to give away what they were actually doing because I don't know if they've moved forward with it, and I'm sure it might be proprietary. But they had something they were building. They had basically a piece of hardware that was going to be virtual reality tech that they were working on, and it was like, okay, well, how would you get something like that to market? It was an entrepreneurial endeavor in immersive technology that had very little to do with actual programming of AR, VR, or creating of experiences or things like that.
Right, and thank you for supporting us and our students. Actually, both students are really doing very, very well now that they both graduated. Not pursuing that particular project anymore, but boy, they learned a heck of a lot, so I appreciate that. But one of the interesting things you mentioned there was the idea of looking for, the actual business or application as opposed to just the technology. So, and certainly that's a challenge we have, right? Everybody wants to sell or invent something, but not really think about what it's used for and what the application is. So that's what I wanted to hear, a few ideas around that end. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Carlos is actually commenting a lot on the Facebook, so I'll read some of that in here. He's just talking about the metaverse, and he was mentioning how there was a virtual world for education back in 2002 that he worked with called Edutopia, which was actually implemented across a lot of schools and PC users. And just, the different types of content, the concept of experiences and simulators and labs and tools and scripts and all these things being very different, and how content is just, content is driving right now. I did see another question that was up in the room a minute ago, but I don't see it anymore. So I will say, if you have a question in the room, if you raise your hand, keep it up, because it does actually, the list shows up on the order in which the hands are raised. Anyone else have a question in the room right now? I can throw one out there very quickly. So Jessica, I'm going to throw this one to you because you brought up SBIR, which Bundle AR, my company, has an SBIR contract from AFWorks, so for the U.S. Air Force. And the first question I'll ask you is, who is your SBIR through? Because the SBIR is Small Business Innovation Research. And one of the things, just for those of you in the audience who don't know what that is, you have to be a for-profit company to get an SBIR grant or a contract. You cannot be a not-for-profit. You cannot be an educational institution. There's different types of programs and grants and things. There's STTR for educational institutions. But in order to get an SBIR contract, you actually have to be a for-profit company, because their whole point is to actually fund for-profit companies that are going to have commercial value. So I guess the first question I'll ask you, Jessica, is which department of the government did you get your SBIR from, and specifically what project was it for?
So we've actually been very fortunate to get SBIRs from 3 areas of government. Our first one was from the National Science Foundation, which funded BioDive. Our second one was from the Institute of Educational Sciences, which is basically the Department of Education, and that funded GeoForge. And our third one that we're currently on is from the National Institutes of Health, which is funding waterways. And yeah, they are fantastic opportunities for anyone who is part of a small for-profit company to really focus on creating something that is commercially viable, but is still so early stage that you probably would not be able to get investment in it otherwise. And they are grants, and the grants are substantial. Generally, the phase 1s are around $200,000, and then the phase 2s are anywhere between $1 million to 1.5. And then, depending on which agency, there's even opportunities for follow-on funding. If you have sales or additional investment, they'll match that 50 cents on the dollar up to $500,000. So it is significant money, and every area of government that conducts research has to put, I think it's 3% of their budget towards these grants.
Excellent. So we have a question from Facebook, which is from Francis. And this one's kind of an interesting question, which I'm kind of curious to hear what everyone else answers on this one. So why do we think that a younger generation of students are more eager to learn through the new technologies such as VR and AR, whereas older generations seem less eager to learn through these new technologies? Do we think it's a psychology thing, a mental, or just life experience? curious to hear, I have my opinion on this and I want to give my answer, but I'd kind of like to hear what other people say first. So I'm gonna go Jessica. We're gonna go reverse order this time. So Jessica, if you don't mind going ahead first again, and then we'll go to Elise.
Sure. I think that depending on how you're defining the age of students, a lot of our younger folks are just far more used to using technology than older generations of students. Even, if you look at who have children through this, that have been home through this pandemic, I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they're both far more comfortable with Chromebooks and typing than I certainly was at their age, or was in high school, or probably in college. And it's just, they're just used to this idea of themselves being represented in a virtual world. It's not strange for them. And I don't know how much of that is because of, being in school for a year and a half virtually, or how much it otherwise would have been. But the idea of seeing a virtual representation of yourself and virtual representations of others, and being able to do these, dangerous and expensive other kinds of opportunities, for them seems far more normal than it does for older generations. And I also think for younger folks, they're more open to doing the kind of less immersive and exciting things. And I think maybe for the older students, like in college, they probably are mostly familiar with VR as something that requires, a headset, maybe hand controllers, and that is more intimidating. And a lot of kids actually are uncomfortable using that when they can't see themselves, like in a classroom, like having their eyes covered that way. So maybe it might have something to do with that. But again, I would be interested to hear what Elise says.
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit the right point that the leap from computer screens to VR or AR isn't actually that great. And I mean, you have students who just expect AR to be on their phones in every social media app that they do. So yeah, this concept of a different reality, I think, is not as foreign to students now. I would also add that, this technology has only very recently become accessible to the point where you can put it in classrooms. And so it's not necessarily a lack of interest that has made it difficult to use this technology, but just a lack of access, and just like Jessica said, that, some forms of the technology can be so cumbersome. So I think as students are using devices they recognize, like tablets and phones, as an entry point into these experiences, they get more and more used to it. And I think that schools this is not an exact answer to the question, but also an important point. Schools have always played a really important role in bringing the next generation up to speed with the technology that they will need to succeed. And that's been true of the internet and computers, and that's going to be true of immersive technologies as well. So not only do we need to make sure students have an interest in it, but we do need to make sure they understand the technology and how to use it, and how it might affect their lives in the future. So I think that, encouraging that enthusiasm is also really important.
I don't have much to add, except to say that I'm not 100% sure that what the research says, that students are better in specifically AR and VR, are more likely to use it than older folk. I do know that VR, we're talking about VR now, but has, still a lot of challenges, and that, you don't want to be in there for more than 20 minutes at a stretch. And the fact that, I don't know, my personal experience, for example, is that, when I first got the Quest 2 last year, I was playing, a lot in the headset, but then, have moved kind of back to mobile games because it's kind of more easily accessible. I think students, are spending a ton of time in games, in particular, a lot more than they have been in the past. Fortnite, whether it's Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, they're just sort of more used to that kind of world. And a lot of these exciting experiences, like what Jessica's been working on, these immersive experiences are sort of gamified, and that's fun. It's a fun way of learning. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna really go quickly. My answer to that question is I was gonna you kind of touched on it, Alex, which is that I don't really think that younger generations are faster to adopt the technology than older generations. I think it comes down to actually kind of what what Elise said, which is the fact that, well, the technology's only been available for a short time, so that's why it's being used now. You know, none of us, I don't personally remember having access to virtual reality when I was in grade school. I do remember in high school that we could go downtown and go to the, you know, the Battletech Center and play the really old, nasty virtual reality pods, if you guys ever remember what those things are. And that, you know, looking back now, that was like a terrible experience, but it was still really exciting and cool at the time. And you know, I think that's honestly what, for a lot of people who are, you know, my age or older and currently working in immersive technology, we remember that as like, that is one of the things that really interested us in this technology, and that was back in the 90s. Carlos has another question from Facebook, which is, do you have info about the teacher's skills and experience in VR in the States? And actually, Alex, I'll throw that one to you, because ultimately, like, in terms of the teachers that you're talking to who are, you know, using Unity, like, I guess what are you finding in terms of experience level? Like, what percentage of teachers, what types of teachers, who really kind of is embracing being able to use Unity, and who's really just sort of doesn't know what to do with it or doesn't even know how to start?
Yeah, there was a really interesting report that came out, I think it was the Educators yesterday. I'll see if I can find it in a break, but it was something like, you know, in the US, Carlos, I think you were asking there, you know, only 50% of high schools, for example, students have access to a computer science curriculum. Our key personas, when we talk about like creating in Unity and developing, well, first of all, games, you know, game development is our mostly what teachers teach Unity for at the moment, because it's, you know, a really engaging way to teach, introduce programming through game design, because kids love games, obviously, as do adults. But more and more, as far as AR and VR development is concerned, in, you know, all levels of education, obviously higher ed, I think, more probably adopting it more quickly because they've got more resources, or some higher ed institutions, I should say. But the, you know, I often just talking, it's mainly like, you know, I guess you could say entrepreneurial, what would you say, entrepreneurial educators, who are kind of working within a system that doesn't necessarily, you know, are quick to adopt things like this, or, you know, is skeptical, as they should be, about bringing new technologies into the classroom. You know, see California's kind of iPad rollout as example A. But it tends to be entrepreneurial teachers that are like pushing the boundaries in schools and understand that this is a way to hook students into real-time 3D development, into coding. It might be new media. Higher ed's really interesting. In my job, the particularly fascinating thing that I get to do is talk to higher ed educators who are using these technologies all over the place. You know, whether it's someone who I'm talking to, actually, I can promote another webinar that I'm doing at the end of the month, where I'm talking to an educator from Harvard Graduate School of Education, as well as Georgia State University. Is it Georgia State University? I think so. Who do educational technology courses in higher ed, and their students create in Unity for students. So they, you know, they don't do quite as well as what Jessica does, but that's what they're aiming for. So there's just so many practical uses nowadays, and it's getting more and more. That's a bit of a long-winded answer. Sorry, Carlos. Yeah.
Jessica, what do you think on that one?
Sorry, my VirBela was freezing. I think I heard my name, but my mic is turned yellow. Can people hear me?
We can hear you.
Could not hear you for a moment there. I'm sorry, did you?
I did. I was going to have you answer the question, just, you know, again, because you're working, you know, as you said, you're working very heavily with elementary school teachers. So what would you kind of find is the VR experience level of teachers in the U.S. prior to, I guess, you know, like as you approach them or as you're starting to work with them?
So the folks that we are working with generally have not had much experience with VR, and one of the things that they do find appealing is that the kind of equipment they need is minimal. It's either they can use web VR or just phones. And I think that has definitely helped. The way that we find many of our science teachers, if either they come to us because they hear us at some event and so they're already actively interested, or we tend to look for science teachers from across the states who have won various awards. And the kinds of science teachers who have won awards tend to be the kinds of people who are really excited to try new technologies and are very open to that idea. So with our products, the teachers don't create any of the VR themselves, but they do love using it. Like I have a whole folder full of pictures of happy teachers looking inside, looking in headsets. So it's definitely something that they enjoy, but they also have traditionally been fairly happy that it's an easy thing to use. And also to kind of mention, to address something Alex said earlier, all of our VR experiences, we limit to 2 minutes. So after 2 minutes, the students will get timed out of the experience, so that because we don't want students to be in VR for long periods of time either.
Excellent. So Elise, I'm going to throw a different question at you actually, because you did mention how about like policy and the importance of policy here, and how, to a certain degree, policy is actually going to be able to potentially help drive some of the adoption here. So, this is a slightly selfish question, but I'm going to throw it at you. So Bundle AR, we have a platform that allows anybody to create augmented reality. And I do mean anybody. You don't have to have any coding skill at all. It's drag and drop web interface, very simple to use. Something that I would think a teacher could very easily pick up, because teachers, frankly, they're used to creating lesson plans, they're used to creating materials, using smartboards, using PowerPoint, stuff like that. So I guess what would be the right way for someone like us to approach teachers and say, hey, listen, here's this tool that you can use that will make education very engaging. We've shown augmented reality to students. They tend, the one thing I'll say about younger kids, whenever we show younger kids anything with augmented reality, number one, they take to it immediately. And number two, they don't really seem to almost, it doesn't seem like they, I think it was Jessica who said it earlier, like they've been dealing with augmented reality in their social apps and stuff like that, or the games that they play for, essentially probably for as long as they've been able to handle devices, because, younger kids don't know a world without smartphones. So the fact that they would engage this content just the way that they would engage with almost anything in the physical world or any other type of content, I guess, what would you say is the right way to approach, educational institutions or schools or teachers or just in general to drive, let people know, hey, there's these tools out there that you can use. They're very easy to use. They're very easy to learn. Do you think the right way to approach that is to go at the policy level to try and actually reach, Congress and government and people there, or just go straight to the schools or the school districts? What would be your thought there?
Yeah, you hit on the probably most challenging part of my job, is that generally people in the policy space, and I would imagine this extends to many school administrators and people in the education space, still think that these tools don't exist, and I'm just throwing out fun hypotheticals for maybe the future. So awareness that there are easy to use off-the-shelf tools is low. And so I think just starting with making sure that the people who are making the decisions about funding, about how we are approaching technology in classrooms is really important. Obviously, reaching teachers is the end goal. But yeah, I would say, making sure that school districts are aware of the technology. And also, like I said in my report, I've advocated for direct funding of immersive technology labs, where you could actually have students and teachers and community members come and build experiences and learn to use easy drag and drop tools. And also formalize training of teachers. We don't have to necessarily train every teacher to code, but we should make sure they know how to, again, use the tools that exist out there to develop experiences that are relevant for their own students in their own classrooms. So yeah, I think, teachers are obviously critical to reach, and teachers are going to be your biggest champion for this technology, but the people they should be championing it to are the people who are making those funding decisions and those investment decisions at the district and even state departments of education level.
Excellent. And I was going to say, Jessica or Alex, you want to add to that? Jessica?
Yeah. I don't know if y'all are already doing it, but if not, I would highly recommend that, you partner with some of the teachers' colleges that are around you and offer to, come in and lead some free classes for them, to do any sort of like training of future teachers, because I think that those people would be really excited to bring it to a classroom. And then maybe also looking into partnering with, there are different kinds of places that do professional learning hours. And so I know in New York, there's BOCES. I'm not sure what they have in Illinois, but places that will give, because teachers have to continue to do a certain amount of professional development to keep up their licenses. So seeing if training folks on using your technology could be something that would get them those kinds of credential hours.
Excellent. Alex, I'm sure you're dealing with this exact same issue on the Unity side. Anything else to add on that?
Nothing to add.
Excellent. All right, so we're kind of, we're at the point now where we're generally kind of coming to the end of the Q&A. Does anyone else in the room actually have a question? Last chance to raise your hand now. All right, so I'm going to throw one more question to each of our presenters, and then we'll close up and we can get to more open networking. Because I do know that, and again, I hope all three of you can stick around for the open networking, because a lot of times people are a little bit cautious to actually raise hand and talk when they know that we're being webcast and the webcast will end, and they'll be like, oh, okay, I don't have to, now I can just talk one-on-one. But the one question that I always like to throw to everybody is very much just what's the coolest thing that you've seen so far in immersive technology? It doesn't necessarily have to be specifically education related, but what's just the coolest thing that you've seen so far in virtual reality or augmented reality, and what's the one thing that you really think will be cool that you haven't seen yet? I'm gonna go to Jessica first on this one.
So I was taking a minute to try and think about what the coolest thing was, but the first thing that jumped into my mind is that I'll share, which was I went to this conference called Games for Change a couple of years ago, back when we used to have conferences in person, and they had a competition for immersive games, and one of the ones, or immersive experiences, and one of the ones was this incredible experience of the Scream, the painting, where when you looked at it, different parts of it start to move, and then you would be sort of like drawn into it. And they had both kind of audio, and it also talked a lot about the artist's mental state and what it was in reference to. But it was just this incredibly immersive, scary, and engaging experience that, I still think about like 3 years later. And so, yeah, that was definitely the kind of immersion into the art piece and the artist's mind was sure one of the coolest things that I've seen. Things that I'm still hoping and looking forward to seeing are, I really want a lot of the things that one can do in a headset to be available for folks who don't have headsets. Like, I love some of the kinds of, again, just sticking with the same theme of art, this kinds of art that you can create with, when you're in a headset and you have hand controllers and you can paint all around and so on. And I would love for that to merge more with augmented reality in a way that people who don't have those headsets can still kind of experience it and see it and be part of it. Because I think that achieving equity in the immersive world is going to be something that we all need to focus on, and that will make the immersive world infinitely more interesting and engaging.
I am going to skip the coolest thing because I can't think of one that I want to highlight right now. It's 8:30. My brain is slowly going downhill, but I am really excited. Like Jessica said, to see more uses of augmented reality. I think there is incredible potential to, make immersive experiences more accessible to more people when it becomes available across platforms and across different levels of immersion. I'm really excited to see what happens with multi-user augmented reality, especially with multi-user augmented reality in different places. I think that has incredible implications for just how we communicate and share experiences with each other. In education, in work, and also just in our everyday lives. And I'm really excited to see what people are coming up with in that space.
I'm going to say the same thing as Elise on the last one on what I think will be really cool. And I'm going to drop in a blog, shameless promotion of Unity, a Unity creator. This was featured actually at the Facebook or the Meta, should I say, launch. It's very, very cool. I think the future of like being able to interact with folks at a distance using tangible interfaces, or, you know, seeing them across the table from you, and having pass-through technology. So having a VR headset on, but being able to see your own room and your own room kind of changing to the space, or changing to whatever is happening in the virtual world, or just the merging essentially of like the virtual world and our own world, I think is going to be extremely cool, very trippy. The coolest thing that I see at the moment, or the thing that I think about a lot, is kind of what is going to get my grandma or my grandfather into AR or VR. And I think the coolest things that are happening at the moment are like IKEA, being able to place furniture in your room, being able to try shoes on in AR, things that are really kind of useful that you couldn't do previously. So yeah.
Excellent. All right, so with that, thank you very much. I do want to once again thank all of our presenters. Please stick around because we're not quite done yet, but we're getting there. What I'm going to do right now is, for those of you in the audience, again, I know a lot of you have been here before, so you're aware of how this works. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all of the chairs go away right about now. And what you'll see is on the floor in a few minutes, I'm going to create what are called private volumes. So you're going to see these circles appear on the floor. And what will happen in the circles is, if you're inside one of those circles, you'll be able to talk to and hear the people who are inside the circle with you. If you are not in one of those circles, you will only be able to talk to and hear the people who are not in a circle. That's what private volumes are. It'll allow us to get into kind of, you know, smaller group conversations as opposed to everyone talking to everyone kind of thing and having a lot of noise interference. With that, I will thank our Facebook Live audience for joining us and for the questions that you guys provided. Thank our presenters once again, and thank our audience as well for joining us and for interacting and being part of the event. Next month, oh my gosh, Tom, what's our topic next month?
Storytelling.
Our topic next month is storytelling. This is the first time we've done this, and it's in terms of storytelling, we are definitely going to be exploring narrative storytelling across a lot of mediums, not just necessarily the way that people might be thinking about it. So we have a great lineup of presenters already. Everyone's already, you know, the one thing I'll say that's kind of great about this this one is we actually have next month, I think, almost completely booked already in terms of who's presenting. So you'll be seeing notice about that in the very near future. And obviously storytelling, when it comes into, you know, the ability to use that with immersive technology and how it's affecting immersive technology, is a really neat topic. So we hope you can join us. So once again, thank you to everybody. At this point, in the very near future, I'm going to end the live stream, and we will get back into informal networking. For those of you who are going to Augmented World Expo, I look forward to seeing you there. Please stop by the Bundle AR booth. For a couple of our presenters, actually, I have very direct questions for several of you. I will say, you know, one of the things I didn't mention, which I'll plug right now, Bundle AR does use Unity. So I don't think I mentioned that before. But with that, at this point, I'm going to put on the private volumes in a few minutes. Thanks again to our Facebook audience. I'm going to end the stream right about now. Those of you in the room who want to use the controls to do some dancing or some clapping and thank everybody up here, that would be great. We look forward to seeing you next month, and I will officially end the event and we can get to informal networking. Thank you for all the likes and the love that I'm seeing come through on Facebook right now. Looking forward to seeing you guys all in person again in the very near future, so definitely please join us next month, because hopefully we'll have some announcements about getting back to an actual hybrid in-person event. With that, thanks again. Facebook stream. I'm going to transition you guys out, and those of us in the room, in a few moments I will turn on the private volumes as soon as I see that I can end the Facebook stream. There's always a little bit of a delay there.